Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I would like to welcome you to the Sunday Book Review. The Sunday Book Review is the series where I discuss books which impact the compliance practitioner, the legal professional, and the business professional. I hope you will enjoy this episode. The Sunday Book Review for May 2, 2021. The May Books edition. Today we take a look at some books that are coming out in April and May of this year. First up, Nuclear Folly, A History of the Cuban Missile Crisis by Serhil Plokhy. Nearly 30 years after the end of the Cold War, today's world leaders are abandoning disarmament, building up nuclear arsenals, and exchanging threats of nuclear strikes. To survive this atomic age, we must relearn the lessons of the most dangerous moment of the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The book offers an international perspective on the crisis, tracing the torturous decision-making that produced and then resolved it, which involved John Kennedy, Nikita Khrushchev, Fidel Castro, and their commanders on the ground. The author vividly recounts the young JFK being played by the canny Khrushchev, the hot-headed Castro willing to defy the Soviet Union and threatening to align himself with China, the Soviet troops on the ground clearing jungle foliage in tropical heat and desperately trying to conceal installations on Cuba. More often than not, the Americans and Soviets misread each other, but at the end they were able to de-escalate. Next up, a very troubling book, The Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty. In a grand, devastating portrait of three generations of the Sackler family, whose fortune was built on Valium and whose reputation was destroyed by OxyContin. The author says that Sackler name adorns the walls of many storied institutions, from Harvard to the Met to Oxford to the Louvre. One of the world's richest families, yet have been intimately involved in the opioid crisis and Purdue Pharma, their company. The saga of three generations of the single family and the mark they have left on the world. It's a tale that moves from streets of Brooklyn to seaside palaces of Greenwich, Connecticut. The multiple investigations of the family and their company, their scorched earth legal tactics that they've used to evade all accountability. The history of the Sackler dynasty is rife with drama, lives, bitter disputes, fistfights in boardrooms. Empire of Pain is a masterpiece of narrative reporting and writing, exhaustively documented and ferociously compelling. It's a portrait of excesses in America's second Gilded Age, a study of impunity among the super elite, and their relentless investigation of naked greed and indifference to human suffering. Next up, a new book out from Niall Ferguson, always great author. The Politics of Catastrophe. Disasters are always hard to predict, pandemics, earthquakes, and the like. But when disaster strikes, we ought to be better prepared than were the Romans when Vesuvius erupted. Yet the 2020 responses of many developed countries, including the United States, to the coronavirus were badly bungled. Why? Why only did a few Asian countries learn the right lessons from SARS? In a book going back nearly 20 decades, Ferguson has studied the foibles of modern America, from imperial hubris to bureaucratic scoliosis and online fragmentation. Doom is the lesson of history that this country, indeed the West, needs to learn if we want to handle the next crisis better. And finally, we conclude with a book, Come Fly With Me, the Jet Age Story of the Women of Pan American. Required to have a college degree, speak languages, possess political savvy of a foreign officer, be between 5'3" and 5'9", and 105 to 140 pounds, under 26 years of age. The book talks about the stewardesses who played an unlikely and extraordinary role in the history of flight. All on this week's Sunday Book Review. We have several new podcasts on the Compliance Podcast Network I would urge you to check out. Low Forecast, the podcast from the Morrison Forrester Law Firm, hosted by James Cooke. We have Coffee and Regs by CSS, which takes a look at RegTech, which premiered this past week. In April on the Compliance Life, we feature Jason Kellerman, partner at Stone Turn. Jason comes from a family of doctors, so he's always been interested in healthcare, but he's been in the healthcare consulting side, doing work at consulting companies, as a CCO at Allergan, and now at Stone Turn. Check it out this month. Comtech, a podcast on the intersection of compliance and technology, big brains in compliance. And finally, we have the Compliance Handbook, where I take a deep dive exploration into topics related to the nuts and bolts of compliance. Thanks so much for listening.